The massive alien vessel appeared above Earth without warning, its hull gleaming like polished obsidian against the star-filled void. Captain Lee Miho gripped the armrest of his command chair aboard the human flagship Prometheus, watching a smaller craft detach from the alien mothership like metallic spores. "Sir, they're requesting permission aboard," Communications Officer Kim Sora reported, her voice tight with barely controlled fear. "Granted," Miho replied, though every instinct screamed against the decision. "But keep our weapons charged." The alien delegation materialized on the bridge in columns of shimmering light. 7 different species stood before the human crew, each more terrifying than the last. At their head was a towering creature with scaled skin and 4 arms, its reptilian eyes gleaming with ancient malice. "I am Admiral Korthake of the Korthak Hegemony," the being announced in perfect English, its voice like grinding stone. "By order of the Galactic Council, your primitive species will submit to our authority." Behind him, an ethereal creature with translucent skin and no visible eyes floated several inches above the deck. "I am High Counselor Veltar of the Zephyrin Empire." It spoke without moving its mouth, the words appearing directly in their minds. "We have governed this sector for 10,000 of your years." Captain Miho forced himself to remain calm. "We're willing to discuss peaceful relations." The scaled alien laughed, a sound like breaking glass. "Discussion? You misunderstand. Human, this is not a negotiation. You will surrender all military vessels. You will relocate your populations to designated worlds. You will provide 30% of your people as workers for our industries. And if we refuse?" Miho asked quietly. Veltar's form rippled with what might have been amusement. "Refusal is not an option. We have conquered 473 species. None have successfully resisted." The third alien, a creature covered in chitinous armor, stepped forward. "I am War Prime Skextal. Your weapons are toys. Your ships are scrap metal. Submit now, and your deaths will be quick." On Earth, Admiral Park Ji-hun watched the transmission from his command bunker deep beneath the Korean peninsula. His weathered face showed no emotion as he listened to the aliens deliver their ultimatum, but his hands clenched into fists. "They're giving us 72 hours, his aide, Colonel Kim Suo, said unnecessarily. "I heard," Ji-hun replied. Around him, screens displayed data streams from across human space. Ships moving to position, weapon systems coming online, soldiers reporting to duty stations. "Activate Protocol 7. "Sir, are you certain?" "Once we do it." Protocol 7 had been humanity's most closely guarded secret for 50 years. Ever since the first alien signals had been detected, Earth's greatest minds had worked on a single, terrifying question. How do you fight an enemy that 1,000 years more advanced than you? The answer was simple. You don't fight fair. Dr. Yoon Hannah looked up from her workstation as the Protocol 7 authorization came through. Around her, the underground facility hummed with activity as weapons that officially didn't exist began their final preparations. "Ma'am, are we really going to use them?" asked her assistant, Lieutenant Song Minji. "If they want a war with humanity," Hannah replied, her voice cold as winter, "they'll get one they'll never forget." Back on the Prometheus, the alien delegation prepared to leave. Admiral Korthake turned to Captain Miho with what might have been a smile on his reptilian features. "Your species shows promise," he said. "Perhaps some of you will survive the transition to slavery." "Perhaps," Miho replied evenly. "You should have chosen your words more carefully." The aliens vanished in the same shimmering light, leaving the bridge eerily quiet. Communications Officer Sora looked at her captain with wide eyes. "Sir, what do we do now?" Before Miho could answer, a priority transmission came through from Earth Command. Admiral Park Ji-hun's face appeared on the main screen, his expression grim but determined. "All human vessels, this is Earth Command. You are hereby ordered to begin Operation Ghostwalk. The Galactic Council believes we're primitives who will bow to their demands. They're about to learn what happens when you threaten humanity's children." Across human space, sleeper agents activated. Hidden weapon systems came online. Ships that had appeared to be simple cargo vessels shed their disguises to reveal their true nature. Humanity had spent decades preparing for this moment, and every preparation had been made with one goal in mind: survival at any cost. The Galactic Council had ruled through fear and overwhelming force for millennia. They had crushed hundreds of civilizations, enslaved countless billions, and grown comfortable in their absolute power. They saw humanity as just another primitive species, to be conquered and forgotten. They were about to discover that some prey, when cornered, becomes a predator. The 72-hour countdown began, but neither side was truly waiting for it to expire. The Council prepared their fleets for what they assumed would be a simple extermination campaign. Humanity prepared for something else entirely. In the depths of space, Captain Lee Mio looked out at the stars as people had only recently learned to travel between. Somewhere out there, alien fleets were gathering to destroy everything humanity had built. "Let them come," he whispered to the void. "They have no idea what they've started." The greatest war in galactic history was about to begin, and would end with words no species had ever been able to speak before. There is no Galactic Council. But first, the Council would learn the most important lesson in human history. When you threaten humanity's survival, you don't get a war. You get extinction. The clock was ticking, and humanity was ready to show the galaxy what 10 billion angry humans could accomplish when they had nothing left to lose. Captain Kim Min-jae stood on the bridge of the colonial transport New Dawn, watching the peaceful sunrise over New Eden's golden wheat fields. Below them, 2.3 million people were starting their daily lives, unaware that death was racing toward them through the void. "Sir, we're detecting multiple ships dropping out of hyperspace," reported his navigator, Lieutenant Park Han. Her voice carried a tremor of fear. "It's a Korthak assault fleet." Minji's blood turned cold. New Eden was a farming world with no military value, home to families, children, teachers, and farmers. "Open a channel to the lead ship." The view screen flickered to life, showing the scarred face of Commander C.O. Jaiwan, a Korthak warrior whose forearms ended in razor-sharp claws. Behind him, other aliens prepared weapons with casual efficiency. "This is Captain Kim Min-jae of New Eden Colony," Min-jae said, forcing his voice to remain steady. "We have families here, children. We're not a military target. Please, we just need more time to discuss the Council's terms." C.O. Jaiwan's reptilian features twisted into what might have been a smile. "Time? Your species had 72 hours. You have used 36. This is your lesson in obedience. But the civilians will serve as an example to other worlds." The channel closed. Min-jae turned to his crew, seeing his own horror reflected in their faces. "Evacuate the schools first," he ordered. "Get every transport in the air. Move." Far below, Teacher O'Haran was reading to her class of 6-year-olds when the emergency sirens began wailing. The children looked up with wide, frightened eyes as the lights flickered. "What's happening, Teacher O?" asked little Lee Juno, clutching his toy spaceship. "Just a drill, sweetheart," Heron lied, though her hands shook as she activated the emergency shelter protocols. "Everyone follow me to the safe room. We're going to play a hiding game." In orbit, Commander C.O. Jaiwan studied the peaceful planet below. His orders were clear: demonstrate the Council's power with a surgical strike against infrastructure, disable power plants, destroy spaceports, leave the population scared but alive. But C.O. Jaiwan had different ideas. His species had conquered dozens of worlds, and he knew that fear worked better than mercy. A stronger message would ensure no other human world would dare resist. "Target all population centers," he commanded. "Full bombardment." "Sir," his weapons officer hesitated, "our orders specify infrastructure only." C.O. Jaiwan's claws clicked against his command chair. "I'm modifying those orders. When word spreads what happened here, every human world will surrender without firing a shot." The first plasma bolts lanced down from orbit like angry red stars. The main spaceport vanished in a pillar of fire. Then the power stations died. But the bombardment didn't stop there. Schools erupted in flames. Hospitals collapsed. Residential districts turned to ash. Children's playgrounds became craters of molten glass. In her underground shelter, Teacher O'Haran held 23 children close as the world shook around them. The The ceiling groaned and cracked, raining dust on their heads. Emergency power flickered and died, leaving them in darkness. "I'm scared," whispered Kim Soyoung, a 5-year-old with pigtails. "Don't be scared," Heron said softly, activating the emergency transmitter with trembling fingers. "We're going to be okay. I'm going to tell your families where you are." The bombardment continued for 6 hours. What should have been a demonstration became systematic genocide. Cities burned, farms turned to ash, and millions of innocent people died screaming. Captain Kim Min-jae watched from his ship as New Eden died below. His transport was too small, too slow. They had managed to evacuate perhaps 50,000 people before the orbital strikes made landing impossible. "Captain," Communications Officer Jung Tae-young called out, tears streaming down his face. "We're receiving a transmission from Shelter 7. It's Teacher O's class." The voice that came through the speakers was calm, despite the terror surrounding it. O'Haron spoke clearly into her transmitter as concrete chunks fell around her and her students. "This is Teacher O'Haron of New Eden Primary School. I have 23 children with me in emergency shelter. We are—" The sound of groaning metal interrupted her. "We are under the main school building. If anyone receives this message, please tell their families that they were brave. Tell them that we never stopped being human." The transmission cut to static as the ceiling collapsed. On Earth, Admiral Park Ji-hoon stood in the command center, surrounded by his staff. Every screen showed the same horrific images: New Eden burning, children's bodies in the rubble, families torn apart by alien hatred. The final casualty report came through hours later. Of 2.3 million people, only 300,000 had survived. Among the dead were thousands of children, doctors, teachers, and elderly colonists who had never harmed anyone. "Sir," Colonel Kim So said quietly, "we have confirmation. Teacher O'Haron and all 23 children in her shelter, they didn't make it." Silence filled the command center. Admiral Park stared at the images of devastation, his weathered face showing no emotion. But inside, something fundamental had changed in the old soldier's heart. "The Galactic Council has just made the worst mistake in their species' history," he said quietly. "They've given humanity a reason to fight with nothing left to lose." He turned to his staff, and they saw something terrifying in his eyes. Not anger, not hatred, but the cold determination of a species that had just learned what it was truly capable of. "Activate all Protocol 7 assets," he commanded. "No more negotiations. No more mercy." They wanted to see what humans become when you take everything from us. The galaxy was about to find out. Commander Han Suk floated in the darkness of space, his stealth suit making him invisible to the Korthak sensors. Around him, 50 other human soldiers drifted like ghosts toward the massive enemy battleship. This wasn't the kind of war the Galactic Council expected. "Remember," he whispered into his comm, "we're not here to destroy the ship. We're here to make them afraid of the dark." The human strike team slipped through the battleship's hull like smoke through cracks. While the Korthak crew slept, confident in their technological superiority, the humans moved through their ship like a virus through a body. Han Suk found the ship's main computer core. Instead of destroying it, he uploaded something far worse. A simple program that would make every system on the ship work against its crew. Lights would flicker at random. Gravity would fail in certain sections. Food processors would malfunction. Life support would give false alarms. The Korthak would slowly go insane, never knowing when their own ship might betray them. On the Zephyrian homeworld, Chief Engineer Zartok woke to his worst nightmare. The atmosphere processors that kept his people alive were failing one by one. Emergency teams rushed to repair them, only to find that nothing was wrong with the machines themselves. The problem was in the control systems. Someone had infected them with a virus so subtle that it took days to detect. By then, 3 more cities had lost their air recycling, and panic was spreading like wildfire. How is this possible? Zartok demanded of his technicians. "Our security is perfect." "Sir," one of them replied with trembling hands, "we think the humans did this, but we can't figure out how they got past our defenses." The truth was simpler than they imagined. Dr. Lim Sora sat in her underground laboratory on Earth, fingers dancing across holographic keyboards. She had never left her planet, but her programs were inside every galactic council system in the galaxy. "You wanted to see what humans are capable of," she muttered, watching as another alien world's power grid flickered and died. "Let me show you." For 50 years, humanity had been preparing for this war. Every alien signal they intercepted, every piece of technology they studied, every diplomatic contact they made, all of it had been preparation for this moment. The humans didn't fight like the Council expected. There were no massive fleet battles, no honorable duels between warriors. Instead, humanity fought like the persistence predators they had evolved to be. Captain Choi Yunho commanded the Shadow's Edge, one of humanity's most secret weapons. His ship looked like a simple cargo vessel, but hidden beneath its hull were weapons that Council shields had never been designed to stop. Target acquired. His weapons officer, Lieutenant Yu Jimin, reported, "Korthak heavy cruiser, bearing 27 Mark IV. Fire," Yunho ordered. The quantum torpedo struck the alien ship's shield and passed right through it like it wasn't there. The Korthak vessel exploded in a ball of white fire, never knowing what killed it. "Jump to hyperspace," Yunho commanded. "Next target." The Shadow's Edge vanished before the enemy could even detect it. This scene repeated across the galaxy as humanity's ghost fleet struck, without warning, and disappeared before retaliation was possible. On Korthak Prime, Fleet Admiral Gorhan stared at the tactical display in growing horror. 17 of his ships had been destroyed in the last 6 hours, and his sensors had detected nothing. It was as if the humans could become invisible at will. "Sir," his communications officer reported with barely controlled fear, "we're receiving a transmission. It's from one of our own ships." The face that appeared on screen was Captain Miktal of the heavy cruiser Deathclaw, but something was wrong with his eyes. They darted around constantly, seeing threats that weren't there. "Admiral," Miktal whispered, "they're in our ship. The humans. They're in the walls, in the computers, in the air itself. My crew is going mad. We can't trust our own equipment anymore." The transmission cut to static. Admiral Gorhan felt something he hadn't experienced in centuries of warfare. Fear. "Send a message to all ships," he ordered. "Form defensive positions around the home world." But when his fleet tried to communicate, they discovered that their messages were being intercepted. Worse, the humans were broadcasting fake orders, sending ships to the wrong locations, creating chaos in the ranks. High Counselor Veltar of the Zephyrian Empire called an emergency session. The 7-member species of the Council gathered in their secret chamber, but the meeting was far from confident. "Report," Veltar demanded. "The humans have destroyed 43 of our ships without losing a single vessel," Admiral Korthake admitted, his scale hide showing signs of stress. "They fight like demons, striking from shadows and vanishing like ghosts. Our computer networks are compromised," added Technarch Vordus of the Silicon Collective. "They've infected our systems with viruses we can't remove. Our own technology is turning against us." War Prime Skextal, the chitinous armor of a species dull with worry, spoke next. "My intelligence reports say the humans have weapons we've never seen before. Ships that can pass through our shields, soldiers that can walk through walls." Veltar's translucent form rippled with anger. "Impossible. They're primitives. They've only had space travel for 2 centuries. Primitives who just crippled the greatest military force in galactic history," Korthake replied grimly. The truth was becoming clear to the Council members. They had assumed that advanced technology meant superiority in all things. They had grown comfortable with crushing enemies through overwhelming force and superior firepower. But humanity had spent those 2 centuries learning a different lesson. When you're outgunned, you don't fight fair. You fight smart. You fight dirty. You fight like your species' survival depends on it. Because it does. Dr. Yoon Hannah watched from her secret laboratory as the Council's empire began to crumble. Around her, dozens of screens showed the results of humanity's counterattack. Alien fleets in disarray, their homeworlds in chaos, their leaders paralyzed by fear. "They wanted to make us extinct," she said quietly to her assistant. "Instead, They've created the greatest predator this galaxy has ever seen. The hunt had only just begun. Admiral Korthake stood before the ancient weapon that his species had sworn never to use again. The stellar manipulator stretched across an entire moon, its crystalline surfaces pulsing with deadly energy. For 3,000 years, it had remained dormant in the void nexus, a weapon so terrible that even the Council feared it. "Are we truly going to do this?" asked War Prime Skektal, his chitinous armor reflecting the weapon's eerie glow. "The humans have left us no choice," Korthake replied, his 4 arms working the activation controls. "They fight like demons. Our fleets are scattered. Our worlds are in chaos. This is the only way to end their rebellion." High Counselor Veltar's ethereal form rippled with uncertainty. "This weapon can make stars explode. If we use it, billions will die. Better billions of humans and the end of our empire," Korthake snarled. The stellar manipulator had been built by the first Galactic Council 10 millennia ago. It could reach across space itself and destabilize a star's core, turning any solar system into a supernova. No species had ever survived its use. Deep in the weapon's control chamber, the activation sequence began. Ancient machines hummed to life, drawing power from the moon's core. Targeting systems locked onto the Sol system, where Earth waited unaware of its approaching doom. But the humans were not unaware. Dr. Kim Hyenwool looked up from her instruments aboard the flagship New Eden's Vengeance as proximity alarms began screaming. Around her, the bridge crew worked frantically at their stations. "Admiral," she called to Par Jehun, "we're detecting massive energy readings from the Void Nexus. It's the stellar manipulator." Admiral Park's weathered face showed no surprise. For months, human agents had been monitoring Council communications. They knew this moment would come. "Is the Prometheus protocol ready?" he asked quietly. "Yes, sir," Dr. Kim replied, her hands moving over her controls. Dr. Yoon Hanna's calculations were perfect. We can turn their own weapon against them. The Prometheus protocol was humanity's most desperate gambit. Instead of building their own superweapon, they had created something far more elegant. A way to reverse the targeting of the Council's own stellar manipulator. On the Void Nexus, technicians made their final preparations. Admiral Korthake opened a communication channel to every human world in the galaxy. "People of Earth," his voice echoed across space. "This is your final warning. Surrender immediately or watch your star burn. You have 1 hour to respond." The transmission reached every human colony, every ship, every outpost. Families huddled together as they watched their leaders decide the fate of their species. Admiral Park stood on his bridge, surrounded by the finest officers humanity had ever produced. Captain Lee Miho of the Prometheus appeared on the main screen, along with dozens of other ship commanders. "Sir, Captain Kim Sora the Ghost Runner spoke for all of them. Whatever you decide, we're with you." Park nodded slowly. He thought of New Eden, of Teacher O'Haran and her students, of the 2.3 million innocent people murdered by alien hatred. The Council had crossed a line that could never be uncrossed. "This is Admiral Park Jehun to all human forces," he announced. "The Galactic Council believes they can threaten our families, our children, our very existence. They're about to learn what happens when you corner humanity." He turned to Dr. Kim. "Activate the Prometheus protocol." "Stellar dampening field online," she reported. "Targeting matrix reversed. Their weapon is now aimed at Council space." The irony was beautiful in its simplicity. The Council's greatest weapon, designed to destroy humanity's home, was now pointed at their own hearts. On the Void Nexus, alarms began shrieking as technicians realized what was happening. The targeting system was changing on its own, swinging away from Sol and toward the Council's core worlds. "What's happening?" Korthake roared. "Sir, we've lost control of the targeting array," a panicked technician reported. "Something is overriding our commands." Veltar's form blazed with fury. "The humans! They've infected our systems." The truth was even worse than they imagined. Humanity hadn't just hacked their weapon. They had been inside their networks for months, learning, waiting, preparing for this exact moment. "Abort the firing sequence," Korthake commanded. "I can't, sir." The weapon won't respond to our controls. Admiral Park's voice echoed through the void nexus as he opened a channel to the council leaders. This is Admiral Park Jahun of the Human Colonial Defense Force. Your stellar manipulator is now under our control. Korthe K's scale face twisted with rage and fear. Impossible. That weapon is beyond your primitive understanding. You keep calling us primitive, Park replied calmly. Yet here we are, holding your ultimate weapon hostage. You have 24 hours to completely dissolve the Galactic Council and surrender all military assets. And if we refuse, Veltar demanded, then your core worlds will burn in the same fire you tried to use against our children. The silence that followed was deafening. For the first time in 10,000 years, the Galactic Council faced an enemy that could destroy them completely. War Prime Skextal spoke first, his voice barely a whisper. They've turned our own weapon against us. How? Korthike demanded. How did they penetrate our most secure systems? The answer came from Dr. Lim Sora, still sitting in her laboratory on Earth. Because while you were busy conquering the galaxy, she said to the open channel, we were busy learning everything about you. The Council had made their final mistake. They had threatened humanity's existence with the most powerful weapon in galactic history, only to hand that weapon to their enemies. The countdown had begun, and this time, humanity was the one setting the terms. Captain Song Minji stood in the ruins of the Galactic Council's Central Archive building, watching as the last of their records turned to ash. Around her, human soldiers methodically destroyed 10,000 years of bureaucratic tyranny. Each burning file represented countless species enslaved, entire civilizations erased from history. Ma'am, Sergeant Kondo Heim reported, we found their slave registration database. Over 4 billion sentient beings listed as property. Minji's jaw tightened. Burn it all. Every record, every law, every trace of their authority. When we're done here, it will be as if the Galactic Council never existed. The dissolution had begun 3 days ago when the Council species started surrendering one by one. The Zephyrian Empire was first, their High Counselor Veltar pleading for mercy as their homeworld star flickered under threat of the reverse stellar manipulator. The Silicon Collective followed within hours, their machine intelligence calculating that resistance meant certain extinction. But Admiral Park Jahun wanted more than surrender. He wanted to ensure this could never happen again. On the former Council capital world, alien delegates waited in long lines to meet with human representatives. Each species brought offers of tribute, technology, territory, anything to avoid the fate they had planned for humanity. We offer you our entire military fleet, begged Ambassador Krixtar the Hegemony, his multiple eyes weeping with fear. Surely this proves our submission? Lieutenant Colonel Park Soyon, Admiral Park's daughter and chief negotiator, looked at him with cold eyes. We don't want your ships. We don't want your territory. We want you to remember what happens when you threaten children. The systematic dismantling continued across the galaxy. Captain Choi Yunho led teams that destroyed Council military bases, not to claim them but to erase them completely. Dr. Lim Sora's viruses spread through their computer networks, deleting government records and administrative systems. Within 6 months, the infrastructure that had enabled the Council's rule for millennia simply ceased to exist. Commander Han Suk found himself on a world called Telros, meeting with representatives of a species the Council had oppressed for centuries. The Telrosians were small, peaceful beings who had been forced to mine radioactive crystals for their overlords. You're really going to set us free? Asked Elder McTell, her large eyes filled with disbelief. After so long, we had given up hope. The Council is gone, Han Suk replied simply. You're free to govern yourselves. But who will protect us from raiders? Who will maintain order? Han Suk smiled. You will. Humanity will help, but we won't rule you. No one should have that much power over another species. This scene repeated across hundreds of worlds as humanity established the Free Systems Alliance. Unlike the Council, it had no central authority, no supreme rulers. It was a network of mutual protection and cooperation, built on a simple principle. The strong protect the weak, but they don't rule them. Admiral Park stood on the bridge of his flagship, now orbiting the rebuilt world of New Eden. Below, Golden wheat fields swayed in the breeze, and children played in schools that would never again fear orbital bombardment. "Sir," Communications Officer Jung Tae-hyun reported, "We're receiving the final surrender from the Korthak remnants. Admiral Korthake is requesting terms." "There are no terms," Park replied quietly. "Tell him to go home and think about what his species has done. If they want to trade with the galaxy again someday, they can start by proving they've learned to treat other beings with respect." A year later, the memorial service began as the sun rose over New Eden. Representatives from thousands of species gathered where Teacher O'Haren's school had once stood. The monument was simple but powerful, a child's hand reaching toward the stars, with the inscription, "Here lies the old galaxy's greatest mistake." Underestimating what humans become when you take everything from them. Admiral Park, now showing his age but still sharp as steel, stepped forward to address the massive crowd. Former council species stood beside their former victims, all equal under the new order humanity had created. "The Galactic Council believed that might made right," he began, his voice carrying clearly across the field. "They thought that superior technology gave them the right to enslave and murder. They forgot the most important lesson in galactic history." He paused, looking out at the thousands of faces watching him. "Some things are worth any price. The protection of innocence, the right to exist freely, the simple dignity of being allowed to raise your children in peace. When the Council threatened these things, they crossed a line that should never be crossed." In the crowd, former Council delegates shifted uncomfortably. They had learned the hard way that humanity didn't just fight wars. When pushed too far, humans erased the very concept of their enemies from existence. "Today, we don't celebrate victory," Park continued. "We remember the cost of tyranny and pledge that it will never rise again. The Galactic Council is gone, not just as a government, but as an idea. In its place, we have something better. A galaxy where no species can casually commit genocide and expect to survive the consequences." Dr. Yoon Hannah, now elderly but still brilliant, stood beside the memorial and activated the final component of humanity's legacy. A network of monitoring stations spread across the galaxy, watching for any group that might try to rebuild the Council's empire of fear. As the ceremony ended and beings from across the galaxy returned to their homes, one truth echoed through space. There was no Galactic Council. There never would be again. Humanity had made sure of that. The children of New Eden played beneath alien suns, safe in the knowledge that the monsters were gone forever.